Let's talk about Pennywise and his connections to the natives, mainly his connections to Seski and her tribal war paint. Welcome to Real Enigmas and Theories. Spoilers ahead for It Welcome to Derry. Let's cook. In this video, we're going to cover Pennywise's design choices that he made from Bob Gray's original Pennywise the Dancing Clown design, the Indigenous Galoo connection, the pillars, and what they actually are. Let's pull out the magnifying glass real quick. I pointed out in my last video that in the finale, Pennywise changed his outfit into an inverted version of Seski's tribal war garb, but I didn't go into detail. I mostly focused on the multiverse aspects of It Welcome to Derry being the original timeline of events. However, I think we need to look at this again because the choice in these visual presentations actually tell another story about why Pennywise stays in Derry. So let's break this down. When you look closely at how Seski and Pennywise mirror each other, the red paint symmetry is obvious, but there's definitely more than meets the eye. The markings on Seski's face drop down from the corners of her lips with these notches in them that represents the bear's teeth. Pennywise's lines rise from the point of the mouth, climbing through the eyes and up into the forehead. In It Chapter 2, when Beverly faces the Miss Kirsch illusion, Bob Gray rips his face open to show that half Pennywise, half human mask. He tears into his face to show a bloody version of that iconic design from the Muschietti adaptations. Sesking's markings were tattoos, and Pennywise ripping the face symbolized scarification. The notches in Seski's tattoos represent the teeth of the bear, and we have seen Pennywise open his mouth from those lines to show his teeth as well. Pennywise appearing in the bloody suit with a half-red face is no doubt inspired by Seski's inversion of a red war-painted face. And a design element from the 2017 movie predates Bob Gray entirely because Pennywise took it from Seski's warrior tattoos. It was right there in front of our face the whole time, or literally on their faces. But we never knew this until It Welcome to Derry reveals that the inspiration actually comes from Seski. Now, there's no doubt about the resemblance with the red face. I mean, the coverage on the exact same spot is on the literal nose. Seski was killed before the town of Derry existed. So why incorporate her details into the added Pennywise appearance? I think it may be because Seski is the last person that it killed before the natives surrounded the western woods with the pillars. Also, the keeper of the dagger must tether itself to the Galoo as an authority, author, and authorizer to engage in battle on behalf of the tribe while the elders bear witness and continue the oral tradition. Because that's what we see when Halloran enters the mind of Tanyel to get the information about the dagger. In that hall of memories, Aunt Rose came in to check if Tanyel could spit out the information. That was an actual memory of his aunt checking his memory skills. And we learn that that story is something that they were required as the keepers to memorize by age 7. And I think that if you don't have those memory skills to memorize all of the stories in the oral tradition, you don't get selected as a keeper. I mean, just look at the little meetings that they were having. It was a very selected few people. Even one of the meetings, the head elder was actually educating one of the new initiates. Now, here's one more aspect of Seski's warrior garb that also mirrors the Galoo, and that's the bear above her crown chakra on her head. Wearing a bear's head or a full bear skin over the warrior's head is a real and extremely serious thing among the Wabanaki and the broader Eastern woodland cultures. And across the Wabanaki tribes, the bear is held at high status close to humans because they walk upright, they share human food sources, and they display intelligence and memory. And memory or forgetting is definitely one of those key themes in the It universe. Now, the bear was always regarded as one of the most sacred forest elders, but the part that mirrors Pennywise is the hibernation period that symbolizes death and rebirth. Even when you go back to young Tanyel playing in his room, He has the bear in his hand fighting the military, foreshadowing his own death as a warrior. And Seski was the last warrior of this caliber that it was able to kill before the Circle of Pillars. However, it wasn't able to consume Seski, so she had a proper burial and ritual ceremony. And that's why I wish that they would have shown us a little bit of Tanyu's funeral. And it's crazy how the military figure versus the bear actually happened just like what you see him playing in his room. So Seski wore the bear, representing human food sources in hibernation. Hibernation mirrors the Galoo, and her face markings and his face markings inverted along with the red ochre inversion is solid. So that connection checks out. But all of this really sheds light on something that was never really made clear in the It material, including the novel. And that detail that they shed some light on in It Welcome to Derry is how it actually made it to Earth and why the shards even work. I mean, we did know that it crashed and we knew all of that, but there's a few little details in the story of Tanyu's that shed a lot more light on it. It didn't just simply travel to Earth. The story was that an evil spirit was cast down from the darkest part of the sky, and it was bound inside of a fallen star millions of years before the first people. That darkest part of the sky is the Todash darkness. Now, here's the detail. If it was bound to this rock and then cast to Earth, then that was meant to be some sort of banishment. And Tanyul even goes on to say that the star broke upon impact and it set the spirit free to roam the woods. So if you set something free, that means it was imprisoned. Then Tanyul mentions the creation of the first men who took the shard from the star and fashioned a weapon because the star contained it still had power. Now, I'd like to stop here and address the fact that Pennywise could have easily made it past that ancient deadwood tree with no problem. I'd even bet that Pennywise was loving all of that tension and fear being produced by playing all of those playful skipping games and silly antics. I mean, Leroy shot him in the head and he regenerates as a jack-in-the-box clown. No urgency at all. And I believe that it has already traveled the entire world, leaving spawns of itself all over the place. You mean to tell me that it crashed here millions of years before the first men and he just stayed underground, just decided to leave and come out when the settlers came? I seriously doubt that. I would even say that at the very least, the spirit energy of the deadlights can be found in various places in the blast radius of where that star had landed. And that's all over Maine, but we're going to get to that in a second. So let's look at it. The deadlights were cast after being contained inside of this black rock, and it was bound to that rock before it was broken open upon impact, which most likely sent pieces of this thing flying in every direction. I mean, you're talking about a cataclysmic meteor impact, and that meteor was cosmic Todash material. And we find that this type of thing happens in a lot of Stephen King stories. Not the meteor impact, but black obsidian material. Check this out. That impact would have scattered shards of primstone all across the entire region, creating all types of supernatural hotspots. That's why we get Derry, Castle Rock, Jerusalem's Lot, Shawshank, Haven, Chester's Mill. All of that would be in the blast radius. And we're told that that dagger would try to reunite with the source that it was chipped from and make whoever holds it crazy and get sick. And that's exactly what we saw happening with Lily and Will when they held the dagger. They even had to force it into the ground in order to create that seal again. So if the meteor broke into a bunch of pieces from microscopic dust all the way to pieces that you could carve into chess pieces like in Shawshank Redemption, then this would explain the strange dealings that we see in King's work throughout Maine. You have It, Insomnia, The Mist, The Tommyknockers, Pet Cemetery, Shawshank Redemption, The Colorado Kid, Joyland, The Storm of the Century. All of these stories talk about some sort of black obsidian material that's found in Maine. I mean, look at Shawshank. Andy was collecting black volcanic glass fragments from the surrounding area. And the problem with this is that the Maine stories have a black rock that shouldn't even naturally be in Maine because it shouldn't have any volcanic glass. And I'm not just making stuff up. This is a geological fact. Obsidian only forms in very specific volcanic environments that have rapid cooling lava flows with places that have silica-rich magma. And Maine doesn't have any of that. There are no active or recent volcanoes in Maine capable of producing obsidian deposits. So why all of these little black materials and black obsidian stones found in Maine? It's obviously due to the crash. The It story explains why all of the other Maine-centered stories have this black stone material, but it also explains why the supernatural occurrences are happening when you look at how the dagger that's fashioned from the stone affects somebody who holds it. The reason why you got all this crazy stuff going on in these areas is because these things are literally trying to make its way back to the source. And all of the debris and the particles from that crash is why all the weird shit happens in Maine. And I don't believe for a second that it just sat underground for millions of years waiting for settlers. It most likely roamed and hunted while leaving residue everywhere. I mean, we know that the auguries give it power because that's why Seski's daughter wanted to go and get more shards from that impact point so that it could do something to, hold the Galoo back, because the settlers came, they didn't listen to the natives, and they went in there and got killed by the Galoo. And that was an augury moment. So that gave him a lot of power. And then they started having problems with him again. And then in 1962, we get the Black Spot augury, which again gave it a lot of power. And when that circle was broken, Pennywise was able to create a time-shifting mist just like in The Mist. And when you look at The Mist, Project Arrowhead was able to tap into a portal to the Toadash dimension. The kid was able to interact with the settlers at Castle Rock. And that crash contaminates the entire region. And every supernatural hotspot in King's Maine lines up exactly with that blast radius, all the way from Pet Cemetery to Cujo. But there's the question. If the crash happened millions of years ago before humanity, how do the natives know the backstory? I think that one of the natives was taken into the deadlight and saw its arrival the same way Beverly saw the loser's future when she was taken in by the deadlights. And that memory that native saw was passed down through oral tradition. In my last video, I explained how Dick Halloran is the originator of the ritual of Chud and how it Welcome to Derry is the actual original timeline. You can go check it out. I'll link that at the end. But the important point here is that the only way a human would know the truth about it falling to earth is by being swallowed into the deadlights and then escaping. But the black material itself doesn't begin with it. Let's be clear. The Toadash star is what carried it to earth. And that's just one example of this substance taking a physical form. This is a form of matter from the Toadash space. It didn't create it. It was contained inside of it. And the fallen star wasn't the source of the black stone, but the stone was a prison that delivered it to earth. That means that its crash is the earliest earthbound incident that we've been shown. I mean, even if you look at the Dark Tower cycle, Black 13 is the purest example of the Toadash crystal anywhere in King's canon. And we know that it comes straight out the darkness between worlds. And it behaves exactly like the fragments that we see in Derry or Randall Flagg's obsidian talismans in The Stand. They seem to channel the same type of energy. You have the black gem in the storm of the century, and it arrives from outside of our world entirely. Even the territory's black mirrors in the talisman and the Lowman's dark glass machinery in the hearts of Atlantis. Then you even have the reflective deadlight surfaces that Danny sees in Dr. Sleep. They all operate off that same psychic principle. And even the Dark Tower itself is covered in a black obsidian material. But let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts about the inversion between Seski and Pennywise's design, and tell me what you think about this theory. And if you like the video, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff and go check out this video right here about the original timeline. And I'll catch you in the next one.